Good morning, everybody. How's everybody?
Great.
All right. I was talking to David, and I said that this morning there's a couple options you guys had. You could be over at the Oatmeal Festival running a 5K kind of out in the cold drizzle and then treating yourself to oatmeal for breakfast with gummy bears and everything else. Or you could be here. So I think you guys made the right choice. Welcome. And for those of you that haven't heard my story is that I started as a little kid with lots and lots of health challenges. And had a bleeding ulcer at the age of 3, lots and lots of food sensitivities, allergic to everything environmentally just about, allergic to the sun. I would break out with water blisters about 5 minutes out into the sunshine. And chronically ill, lots of medications, lots of special diets, lots of things. And my parents exhausted everything trying to find solutions for me. And it's through my own health challenges that has motivated me to become what I am today, to really strive to help people get their health and optimize their health the way that I've been able to through the years. And so through that time, I've spent a lot of time and energy trying to learn everything there is about being healthy. And so I've read lots and lots of books. This is just a fraction of the stuff I've been through as far as books. Lots of classes, webinars, seminars, training with the leading experts in the world in health and wellness. And I've come up with lots and lots and lots of great information. But what I've come to realize is that all of that information is kind of like this. I got lots and lots and lots of keys, and I've kind of forgotten what some of these keys even do. And I realized that of all of these keys, there's only a few of them that I still use that have really made a difference in things. So today, as we jump into 2019, and we want to talk about making 2019 your brightest year yet, I'm not here to give you more information. Because the truth is, who here really needs more information? Yeah, we're just inundated with it. So what I want to do today is actually simplify things. I want to take and kind of pare health down to some basic fundamental keys that if we apply those on a consistent basis, it makes all the difference. And then we can kind of forget about just being overwhelmed with so much information that we don't even know where to begin or what to do. So this is about simplifying. Is everybody good with that? I think it's a good place to start. So here's what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking the first part of this morning and really talk about understanding what true health is. On a scale of 0 to 10, how important is your health to you? 10, 11? Anybody be below a 10? I was asking that question one time and a guy said 4. I'm like, wow, 4, your health is, he goes, well, if you just look at my lifestyle, you can tell that it's not that important to me. I don't take care of it the way that I should. And which is a good aha, right? Because it's easy to say 10. Yeah, it's the most important thing. And then you look at what we did this morning or what we did yesterday. And our actions actually determine how important something is to us, right? So with that is we want to, again, simplify things so that we can be taking actions to really optimize our health. Because whether you think your health is that important or not, it is our most important asset, right? Lots and lots of really, really wealthy people were asked, if you had the choice of losing your health or your wealth, what would you choose? And across the board, they all said that they would lose their wealth. Because if they lost their health, they would lose everything. If they lose their wealth, they can get that back. So we really need to come to recognize is that we're here today because our health is our most important asset. And if we have some strategies, we can optimize that. So we're going to be talking about what health is. I really want to take and create this thing in your mind where we start looking at what our approaches to health have been and really see health from a different lens. So we're going to be talking about suppressing health versus expressing health. Then we're going to jump into the keys of true health. We're going to be going through and talking about rethinking, getting outside the box, reverse the inertia, unplug, and then we'll talk about the master key. These will make sense to you as we go, all right? And I'm going to warn you right now, I was talking to Kathy Sparks and some of the people that were here earlier, is that, we're not officially done with burpees. For anybody who was involved in our burpee challenge we did last month, if I see some eyelids starting to kind of sag a little bit, it could be burpee time. So I'm going to encourage you to try to stay awake as best you can as we jump through this thing, all right? So let's talk about this. If health is our most important asset, we should probably know it pretty well. We should understand it. So, what is health? Life, energy. Anybody else? Happiness, how you feel. Peace, feeling good. Good. I think those are all good answers. I think that's all encompasses what health is, right? So I decided that let's talk about what it isn't, because then it makes it a little bit easier to understand what it is. This is actually some statistics from 2014 looking at the percentage of Americans that currently are suffering with chronic disease. So what they've shown is that 60% of adults in the United States are dealing with chronic disease. 60%. So what does that mean? That means that 60% of us, more than half of this room, has a chronic illness that they're being treated for daily, weekly, that comes and goes, that's recurrent, that's not going away, that's relentless, it just continues to persist. And if you take a look at the numbers, you go even further, you'll say that 42% had more than one chronic condition. Right? So instead of just having diabetes, maybe they have diabetes and heart disease, or they've got heart disease and cancer. And so we start looking at with what health isn't, it's not collecting diseases. We even see here, if you get to this, 12% of adults in the United States have 5 or more chronic diseases. I don't think that's what health is. It's not having something that's not going away, that's not getting better. You know, this isn't what health is. We've got more and more and more people that are needing assistance as we get older. I had conversations with 2 people on the same day last week, 2 women that were both in the process of putting their mothers into nursing homes on the same day. And they had to get on a waiting list because there were so many people wanting to get into that. And I remember back when I was a kid, I grew up in Durango, and I remember every year at Christmas, the junior high would go to the nursing home in town and sing Christmas carols to the people in the nursing home. And in Durango, which isn't a big town, but we had a small little nursing home, maybe as big as this little building here that we're in right now. And it wasn't even that full. And it wasn't really a concern for us. It didn't have a waiting list. And they weren't looking at how can they build more so that they can take care of more people. But what we see is that we've got the level of health we're experiencing in this country is getting worse and worse and worse. And this is what we see going on. We also see this. 25% of our children are on chronic medication. That means that they're already at young ages starting to be medicated on things that they're going to be taking for the rest of their life. These are things like asthma drugs and ADHD medication and different things like this that we're treating things and we're starting at an earlier age. So not only are we getting sicker later, we're getting sicker younger. So when I was a kid and I had allergies and asthma and digestive issues and all of these things going on, guess what? I was that one kid in my school that was sick. It was unusual, it was uncommon. Now I look at things, and if you're the kid that doesn't have asthma and allergies and all kinds of different food sensitivities, other stuff going on, you're that one kid. Because we're getting sicker and sicker. It's happening, it's affecting more and more and more people. So, guess what? We're not expressing health the way that we should. And so what we see is that as we're here today and we're trying to figure out how do we take and optimize our health, there are literally people praying for solutions, praying for answers. Because what they're finding is what we've been taught, what we've been told, our approach to health isn't giving them the solutions that they need. How many of you, when you first came in here, were experiencing to some degree some hopelessness when it came to health? Yeah, we get that way, right? Because guess what? We're not really taught what health is. So today we're going to do that. Let's jump in and figure out what health is. Who do you think would be a good resource to find out what health is? Yeah, there you go. That's a good answer right there. Perfect answer. That's like, when you're in Sunday school, whatever the question is, Jesus is always the right answer. So that's good. Now, I'm not comparing myself to Jesus, so don't take that wrong. So I figured the World Health Organization would be a good resource. What do you think? Wait a minute. Well, before you say that, look at this definition. I think this is a great definition of health, by the way. Health is defined as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease and infirmity. I think that's a pretty good definition. A couple of things I like about it is that it's a completion, right? There's an optimal state of it. And we're not looking at things just physically, because oftentimes when we think of health, we compartmentalize, right? We've got our physical health, we've got our mental health, we've got, my wife would say, I don't have any social health. We've got our different components of things that are going on. But this is all inclusive, because guess what? As human beings, we're mind, body, and spirit, right? And we can't separate those. Every one of those aspects affects the other. So I really like this definition. But if you go to Wikipedia and you look up health as a definition, it'll give you this, and then it goes on to say this. It says this definition's a little bit controversial because guess what? We don't know how to do anything about it. Which is kind of frightening, right? So they're basically saying, you know what? I don't like the definition because there's really no value for implementing anything towards that outcome. There's nothing in our medical or our healthcare system that really works on completing our physical, mental, and social well-being. Right? I actually think spiritual well-being has to fit into this because that's our most important entity. We're actually spiritual beings just kind of cruising around in these physical vehicles. But there's nothing in our current healthcare paradigm that really is working to optimize physical, mental, social, spiritual well-being, is there? So here's what happens is, in fact, everything that we do is geared towards this: disease and infirmity. So we really don't have a healthcare system, we have a disease management system. Would you guys agree? And so if you go to your doctor, what are they going to look for? Yeah, so it starts with this. We typically go to the doctor when we have some kind of a problem, right? So we got a problem. We got a disease or an infirmity. We got a symptom that we're concerned about. The doctor runs some tests and they give us something, whatever that is, to try to minimize or to mitigate the symptom or the disease or the infirmity, right? So we start by naming it. And I don't want to pick on the medical system for this because guess what? As a chiropractor, guess what I was taught in school? I was taught to find where your back hurts, what causes your back pain, what was going on with it, diagnose it, and figure out a way to take care of the symptoms so that we can minimize the symptoms you're experiencing. So guess what that looked like? That looked like taking you through some tests, feeling around for some things, putting hot packs on, cold packs on, electrical stimulation, cold laser, whatever kind of therapies we could, and some adjustments. And our focus was on symptom management. And if we got your symptoms to settle down, we high-fived each other and everything was great. Because guess what our perception of health is? Our perception is if we feel good, we're healthy. If we don't feel good, we've got a problem and we want somebody to make us feel good again. Here's the challenge we run into with that is you can feel good while you're growing cancer inside your body, right? You can feel good while heart disease is a day away from manifesting as a heart attack. You can feel good while your health is collapsing around you. And so you can feel good and not be healthy. You cannot feel good and be healthy. And we're going to talk about that as we get going from here. So basically what it comes down to is that we've got to change our paradigm of what health is. And this is a really good definition. So maybe instead of throwing out the definition and saying it's controversial, how about looking at our approach to this and see if we can improve that? That's what we're going to talk about today. So another important question, now that I've really kind of created some confusion in you about whether or not you're healthy, how do you know if you're healthy? I know that you guys were going to say if you feel good, you're healthy, right? Now you can't say that anymore. We kind of wrecked everything. Again, we've kind of based it upon how we feel, and that's what motivates us to do things. But if we take a look, going back to Wikipedia and asking about health again, here's a definition I thought that was pretty good. Health may be defined as the ability to adapt and manage physical, mental, and social challenges throughout life. You guys like that? I kind of like that as a way to determine if we're healthy or not. Are we managing, are we adapting to the different challenges and stresses that go on through life? Because guess what? Challenges and stresses happen. And that there's, in fact, if you take a look at Newton's laws of thermodynamics, one of them is that everything in life is going towards randomness and chaos. So that means everything's in the state of continually breaking down. So how well are we adapting to that? How well are we adapting to the physical stresses that go on, the traumas? the injuries? How well are we adapting to chronic postural stress from like sitting too much or being too sedentary? How well are we adapting to the mental and emotional stresses that go on around us? And if we're adapting to those, that should be an expression of health. You agree? So when I take a look at it, I kind of look at the word health and I pull out those first 4 letters. And to me, that's the best indicator that we have to how healthy we are. Are we healing? Because again, we're going to have stuff that breaks us down. We're going to have times where we get compromised physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, spiritually, whatever that looks like. How well are we recovering? Because here's the thing, as everything around us is tending to break us down, guess what we have inside of us? We have this innate intelligence inside of us that is actually repairing and rebuilding and healing us all the time. In fact, at about 2.5 million cells a second, our body is regenerating. Which means if there's trauma and there's breakdown and there's tissue damage and cellular damage right now, a second from now it can be better. And then 2 seconds even better. 2.5 million cells a second, our body is healing and regenerating. So if it's doing that well, we should be recovering from things. You agree? So if we're stuck at a place where we're not healing, we're getting worse. We're having things that tend to recur over and over and over again. Guess what we're not doing very well? We're not healing as well as we should. Our health is compromised. Those are the best indicators that I've been able to find in working with that. So if we take a look at that, let's talk about healing. Because again, I think we've got a misunderstanding of healing. How does it feel to heal? Hurts sometimes? You've been around long enough that you've heard this, right? That's an important thing, because when I'm out and kind of if I'm doing like a dinner workshop or other things where people haven't been in here, I'll say, how does healing feel? And they go, great. It feels great. Well, let me tell you, it feels great when it's done. Like anything, but the process isn't that sweet. In fact, here's what healing can feel like. It can feel like inflammation. The first phase of physical healing is inflammation. That kind of flies in violation of everything we've been told, right? Inflammation is bad. Let's get rid of it. Let's take anti-inflammatories. Swelling, that's part of inflammation. Why is that? Well, your body recognizes that if we can get more blood in there, we can actually start getting more nutrients to help restore what's going on and contain any kind of infection or other damage that's going on. It's important. Pain. We don't want to hear that, right? Here's what psychology has shown us. Study of how we process things mentally and emotionally is they've shown that whenever there's injury, physically, mentally, whatever aspect of our being, the nerve system increases activity to that area to promote healing. So if you injure yourself and your nerve system increases activity to the area of injury, what does that feel like? Sometimes that can be pain. So, stiffness, that can come into it as well, right? That's part of the healing process and what things look like. I wanted to put this picture up here. It's kind of gross. That's my foot. When I was in Portugal in November, I was out there for the United States Blind Judo World Championships. And the day before competition started, we were walking around Portugal, checking out these awesome castles, beautiful, really great place to be. On these cobblestone streets, we'd walked about, 10 or 12 miles so far. And I was standing there, and I just shifted my weight, and bam, my ankle rolled. People heard it. People gasped around me, and it was one of those things where I did a pretty good job on my ankle. And so guess what happened? I had some inflammation, swelling, pain, stiffness. And working with USA Judo, it's great because I've got all kinds of great resources available. So the next day competition starts, the trainer for the judo team goes, all right, I got to work on the doctor. And so she's going, okay, we're going to wrap this thing up. I want you to take this ibuprofen and we're going to rest it and elevate it. And so if you guys are familiar with the RICE approach to injury, right? Rest, ice, compression, elevation, spells RICE. So she's ready to do all this stuff. I'm going, nah, I'm not doing any of that because you know what? I need to get flowing energy back into there. My body is made to heal. It knows exactly what to do. And if I kind of just get out of the way and let it do what it's supposed to do, it's going to heal better. So anyway, long story short, it's healed. Everything's fine. In fact, that day, the day that competition started, I walked about 4 miles on my ankle. Up and down bleachers, climbing up and down stairs, crawling over athletes, all kinds of things going on. And I've been skiing, I've been running, I've been doing everything since. So it's made to heal, right? And I'm not any exception. I was sick as a kid. I didn't heal. So if any of you guys kind of go, well, that's because you're healthy, guess what? You guys all have the capacity to heal. It's inside of us right now. We just have to recognize that if I would have interfered with this healing process, guess what I would still have? Yeah, if it's healing at a certain speed and I turn it down, I've just slowed down the healing process, and I've just basically embraced this injury for a whole lot longer time. And that's typically what happens with our health. How about fever? Body aches, mucus, coughing. You guys realize that when you get a cold, that the mucus is there to kind of contain the germs that have invaded, to hold them at bay, to keep them in a certain place. And inside that mucus are actually enzymes that break down the cell walls of the viruses and the bacteria so your immune system can actually kill that. So what are we taught to do? Decongestants, right? Get rid of the mucus instead of letting things go. Then we get the coughing and sneeze. This is your body getting that stuff out after it's been contained. Lethargy. Why do we feel so crappy when we're sick? So you rest. All of these activities take energy. And so if we're going to let them have the energy that they need so that we can heal, our body's going to just feel like laying down. We're going to want to rest. And if we honor that, guess what happens? We heal better. Vomiting, this is always a fun one, right? Yeah. Diarrhea, these types of things. Guess what this is? This is your body purging something out of itself that shouldn't be there. And yet we don't like it, so what do we do with all of this stuff? Yeah, we're basically, we're focused to take care of the symptoms, even though that's part of the healing process. Okay, so this is what it looks like. If you've got a cold, right, and you got the I don't even know how those commercials on television go, but you get the achiness, you get the fever, you get the chills, you get all of the stuff that goes on. When you go to the store, which of these things are you going to get? Are you going to get the one that takes care of 3 symptoms or the one that takes care of 9 symptoms? Right? Because if it takes care of more symptoms, that's going to make us healthier quicker, right? And guess what we've just done? We've interfered with more things than if we'd have just let it go on its own. And again, I'm not just picking on this because even as a chiropractor, guess what I was trained to do? Mitigate symptoms, even while disease and damage continue to go on inside. So that's why when people come to me now and say, oh, it hurts here, can you fix this? It's like, you know what? I'm going to release the body's innate healing power so that it can work better, and we're going to see this thing resolve in its due time, instead of me trying to make the pain go away. All right? It's not because I'm mean and I don't like you. It's actually because I love you and I want to see the best for you.
Yeah, but what about arthritis?
What about arthritis? Yeah, we'll talk about that. That's a great question because we have limitations to healing, right? Are there limitations to healing? I don't know. Remember I said when I started that when I was a little kid, I was really sick. I had my tonsils taken out. You know, back, it was really cool being a kid when I was a kid because when you had some kind of surgery like that, you could take whatever body part was removed to school in a little jar. So I went to school and for show and tell got to show people my tonsils in this little jar. So they were taken out when I was 5. When I was in chiropractic school, we were doing exams on each other, learning how to check everything out. Somebody looked in my mouth and they go, wow, you got big tonsils. And I was like, wow, no, that can't be, because I remember taking him to school in that jar. And so everybody came around, the instructors came around, and they said, yeah, you got tonsils. So when we started what about arthritis? What about autoimmune disorder? What about rheumatoid arthritis? What about scleroderma or lupus? I look at my tonsils and kind of go, you know what? What's the limitation? 2.5 million cells a second. Our body is regenerating. Guess what part of our body is left out of that regeneration process? Not a single one that I found so far. So the limitation oftentimes occurs in what we've been told, right? There's no cure for cancer. Guess what? There's no drug that cures cancer. Only the power that made the body heals the body, and your body can heal cancer. It can heal arthritis. It can heal anything that's going on if we apply the right keys. So here's what's interesting about this is according to Dr. Henry Lindlar, and this goes back probably 50, 60 years that he said this, the greatest part of chronic disease, which 60% of the American adults suffer from, is created by the suppression of acute disease. I put healing in there in parentheses, by drug poisoning or by intervention, right? Whatever that intervention looks like to suppress the symptoms. So if I take the pain, the swelling, all the stuff that's going on in my ankle and I stop it, guess what I've just done to that acute injury? I'm turning it into a chronic one because I'm slowing it down. And it doesn't stop there. It actually gets kind of worse with that. It drives disease deeper. If we take a look at this, I don't know if you guys can see this real clearly. If we take a look at things kind of from the way disease manifests, is it will typically start from where we're exposed to things, right? So if you imagine that we got the shell around us, the skin or the ectoderm, this is where we're typically going to be exposed to any kind of sickness or illness, right? This is where germs are going to come. So if we get sick, that's initially where it's going to start. So it might be some kind of a skin lesion, might be some like conjunctivitis or, pink eye, other things like that. It might be some respiratory things that we get. But basically, it's going to be kind of contained to this outside part of things. So up here it says that ectoderm is the skin, the lens of the eye, the epithelia, or the surface that lines tissues of the sense organs. So it's going to be the outside part of our body. The nasal cavity, sinuses, and mouth. So this is primarily where the first form of infection is going to happen to us. All right, and if we let it work its way out, that's why we have all the tonsils, adenoids, everything here at the surface, it's going to fight things off and we'll be okay. If we interfere with that because we're taught that those symptoms are bad, it goes deeper. Now it goes into the endoderm, and this is going to be the pharynx, the eustachian tube, so now we're going into sore throat issues, we're getting into ear infection issues that go on, tonsils, parathyroid glands, thymus gland, which right here produces antibodies for us, the larynx, trachea, lungs, now we start getting it down into the lungs, asthma, that type of stuff that goes on, GI tract, urinary bladder, and vagina. So we're actually taking things from the outside and kind of putting them into this long tube that goes all the way through our body. That's where we start to see infections show up if we haven't dealt with it on the exterior. Then it goes deeper from there into the mesoderm, and this is where it gets into the organs and the connective tissues. All right, this is where we get muscle problems, fibromyalgia, other types of connective tissue issues, cartilage issues, bone, blood. This is the arthritis that settles in. It takes and it goes deeper, so it gets into our bones, the bone marrow. This is where we can end up with things like leukemia and other kinds of problems with the bone marrow health. Lymphoid tissue, which detoxifies our body and is part of the immune system. Lining of the blood vessels. So the hardening of the arteries or the plaquing in the arteries, coronary artery disease, lymphatic vessels, body cavities, kidneys, ureters, gonads, the reproductive organs, and the adrenal cortex. So now we're making it go deeper. If we don't let it heal at these places, it continues to go deeper. Now we actually have it affect the endocrine system or the hormones. Right? So when Dr. Cody and I were studying functional medicine and wanting to apply more and more of that, we started looking at endocrine health, looking at chronic thyroid issues, thyroid imbalances, adrenal issues, other kinds of hormone problems, whether it's reproductive or fertility issue things. And the bottom line was that all of this was a symptom of other stuff that had never resolved and been taken care of. So it goes deeper. Then it gets neurological. Now it's going after your nerve system. You guys realize your nerve system is the very first system to develop. It's the very core of who we are. It's the only system that's protected by body armor. So we got the 22 bones that make up the skull, 24 vertebrae, to wrap around and protect that nerve system. But when we drive disease deeper, this is where it affects us. It affects our brain function. It affects spinal cord issues. So we get cognitive problems that show up, and we actually get degenerative neurological disease like MS and ALS and Parkinson's and all these things that we're seeing epidemic now, right? More and more and more than ever. Autonomic nerve system. We'll be talking about this in a little bit more detail later on, but this is the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system that orchestrates how you function and how you heal. So we get less and less functionality of that. We don't get that healed. It goes deeper in causing genetic mutations. It changes our genetic expression. So if you guys are familiar with epigenetics, we had a workshop on that not too long ago. Your body is programmed to change, to adapt. And we look at genetic mutations and we just kind of label them as bad, right? If you have cancer, cancer has a genetic mutation of this P53 gene. It's a gene that's in every one of our cells that tells the cell when to naturally die. And so the cancer is that p53 gene gets flipped so the cell doesn't die, so you got these cells that are just in there living forever. They're not dying. Why is that? Well, if you've taken and you've driven disease so deep into your system and the environment inside your body isn't conducive for those cells to continue to heal, they have two choices. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. Everybody on your feet. What I want you guys to do is for the next 30 seconds, I want everybody to either march in place or jog in place. Ready? On your marks, get set, go. You know, I did see some eyes getting a little bit heavy, but that's not the reason we did that. You're going to find out why I did that in just a second. Yeah, you guys feel a bit more alive just from doing that? It's almost like we're designed to have motion that's going on. So let's go back to cancer. I remember where we were. We talked about if inside of our body the environment isn't conducive for our cells to thrive and be healthy, they have two choices. And those choices are to die or to mutate so they don't die. And so this genetic mutation, which we call bad, is the body's brilliance going, it's not a good situation, but we're going to do what we can to buy some time. We're going to try to get this thing going. So we've basically made cancer bad, these cells that don't die on their own. So now what do? We find the most toxic stuff on the planet to pump into the body to kill those things. And that's really become our treatment. So our whole focus on healthcare has been to try to get rid of all of these things that go on inside of our bodies, and we drive sickness deeper and deeper and deeper. So does it make sense why we've got more chronic disease now than ever before? In fact, the World Health Organization says that 90% of the diseases that are prevalent today will not respond to conventional medical treatment because they're lifestyle diseases. They're things that we do to ourselves that make it to where it's going to be resistant to any kind of medical intervention. So we take a look at genetic alterations. This is where it affects the future generations. You guys familiar with methylation disorders, MTHFR gene? This is one where my grandmother had some allergies. My mom had some really bad allergies. I had severe allergies. And there was this genetic mutation where it got more and more flipped. So I ended up with this major shift. I've got some serious genetic distortions going on that affect the way that my body processes over 200 different cellular activities, which predispose me to disease. But guess what? When my kids were born, they don't have all of those things. They still have some genetic shift, but they don't have the expression of that. So as we take a look at what health is, we have the chance to really rewrite the future of next generations by what we do, the way that we approach health. And the way it's going right now with kids getting sicker and sicker, younger and younger, it's because we haven't figured out what health is. We don't understand what that looks like. So we've got to take it to the point to where instead of driving disease deeper, we have strategies to optimize health. Does that make sense? So Martin Luther King Jr., he said that you can't drive away darkness with darkness. You need light to drive away darkness. Right? You can't drive away hate with hate. You need love to drive away hate. So when it comes to sickness and disease, you can't poison away something that is already poisoned inside your body. What you have to do is you've got to take that darkness that's in there and expose it to the light so that it can be healed and released. So watch this video.
Pain, disease, disorders, degenerative conditions, and death. As the world progresses and advances, people are suffering. Drugs, surgery, and modern medicine have yet to find solutions to the diseases that plague society. Humanity is now locked in a battle for survival, and fear is the new plague of mankind. Fear of disease, fear of dying, fear of your own genetic coding. If life is a game, we're losing. We have a toxic environment, toxic food, toxic lifestyles, and the result is death and disease. And for so many people, there seems to be no hope. but there is hope. You're meant to live a full, healthy, energetic, and vibrant life. I'm here to tell you that health, true health, only comes from within. Your body is a brilliant network of systems capable of preventing and reversing any disease you face in life. Never again will you have to fear viruses, bacteria, toxins, or diseases, as long as you learn what your body requires. We need to break the chains of fear and awaken that light inside of you that you already know.
You knew I wasn't going to leave it where it was, right? With fear and just darkness and sickness that goes on. And the truth of it is that we are created to be fully alive. Saint Irenaeus, he said, the glory of God is man fully alive. That's one of my most favorite quotes. Because, if we are the pinnacle of God's creation, when people see us, they should see the goodness of God through us. And when 60% of us are walking around chronically ill and depressed and in a dark state and hopeless, they're not seeing a true reflection of what that should look like. So we're here today to say that there's a better way to look at things. And that I want to take where there's been some hopelessness and replace that with hope. Where there's been darkness, replace that with light. And to remind you again, what it says back here. The power that made the body heals the body. The power that made the body heals the body. That ought to be enough, right? So we start looking at limitations. What's outside of the realm of that power being able to heal? There really is nothing. So let's start with recognizing that it comes down to simplifying things. Success comes from fundamentals. Jim Rohn, if you're familiar with him, an amazing health success coach, he says, success is neither magical nor mysterious. Success is the natural consequences of consistently applying basic fundamentals. So health is a natural consequence. In fact, if you take a look at health, we go back to that World Health Organization definition, complete physical, mental, and social well-being. To me, that would actually be complete health, right? I actually see health more as of a continuum. So you can have poor health, a lack of expression of physical, mental, and social well-being, or you can have complete. And that each one of us is somewhere in between these 2 points, right? None of us are dead in this room yet, and none of us are fully expressing everything that we're created to express, so we're somewhere in between. And this is a dynamic place where we are. And it's how we live our life. It's the fundamental basics, and whether we're doing those or not doing those that determine the direction we're going on that continuum. Does that make sense? So today is about simplification. It's about getting rid of most of these so that we can focus on the basics that matter. The reason Michael Jordan had success was because he said he worked on the fundamentals. For him in basketball, that was dribbling, that was passing, that was shooting. And he worked on that relentlessly to become the best. So if we take the fundamentals and we apply those, that's where we'll get to see that health, moving this direction, is the natural consequence. So let's talk about the keys, and that it requires applying these. The keys to true health: rethink. Get outside the box, reverse the inertia, unplug, and then the master key. Let's start with number 1, rethink. This starts with, what do you believe? How powerful are our beliefs? Does anybody consistently do something that is against what they believe? Yeah, not to get good results. In fact, Gandhi said that our beliefs become our thoughts become our words become our actions become our habits become our values become our destiny. Starts with what we believe. So guess what? If we believe that we're inherently weak and that we're predisposed to this disease or that disease, that My parents had heart disease and cancer. My grandparents had Alzheimer's. We start looking at these things, and our beliefs are because this is what they had and what their life looked like, that's what ours is going to look like. Guess what that does to our actions, our habits, our values? Guess what that does to our destiny? If we believe that we're inherently sick and we just need the right stuff coming in to make us better, and it comes from outside getting it into here, that affects what we do, and it affects our outcomes. If we believe that we have this amazing healing power inside of us, and that if we cut our finger, it heals. And if that same healing power in the finger can get to our brain, and our heart, and our lungs, and our reproductive organs, and our digestive system, and our ankles, and every other part of our body, that changes what we do, right? It changes our action, it changes our habits, it changes our destiny. It changes the genetic expression we leave for the next generations. So our beliefs become really, really important. So what do you believe? Do you believe your body's ability to heal is greater than anybody has permitted you to believe? It's true. Your body's ability to heal is greater than anybody's given you permission to believe. But guess what? I'm changing that today. I officially, here today, give you permission to believe in the power that's already within you. All right? But guess what? If you've been holding on to a belief for a long time, you can't just say, yeah, I'm changing my belief. You have to rehearse it. And what happens is when we have a challenge, that's when we kind of go, do I really believe this? Or do I need to exercise this more? Right? So when I twisted my ankle, and this trainer who works with USA Judo, who also works for the Denver Nuggets and has all these accolades and everything else, is telling me to do this, do I trust this, or do I trust the methods that she has? I had a choice. And even if I still struggled with truly believing this, I can take actions to reinforce this. Because guess what? Now all of a sudden my confidence in this healing power has gone up. You know, if you guys want to hear a cool story about this, talk to Michelle. She was wrestling with some issues a couple months ago. And she came in after feeling crummy. And Michelle never feels crummy. She's like this just vibrant, energetic force. And she really wrestled through a week or two of just having a hard time. And she, when it was resolved, she goes, ask anybody, I'll tell them. And she had this greater level of belief. And so because life has things that are going to stress us out and break us down, we're going to get opportunities to develop and grow our belief. But we're in the midst of it, we have a choice to make. What are we going to do with it? Okay? So what it comes down to is we've got to take and recognize the power of our thoughts. Our thoughts make a difference. And it's easier for us to go, you know, it worked for them, might not work for me. I've never had success in this area before. We tend to have limiting beliefs that will affect that. But here's what Paul says. You know, don't conform to the patterns of this world, but transformation happens by changing the way you think. If we really want to change what's going on, if we want to change our beliefs, if we want to work that way down to changing our destiny, it starts with changing the way that we think. Here's where that becomes, where it actually becomes kind of concrete for us, is that we typically think these thoughts are these really abstract, you know, you can't touch them, you can't feel them, you can't see them. And so we kind of think they're just this woo-woo thing, the thoughts. But Caroline Leaf says, she's a neuroscientist, the thought that you're thinking right now is affecting the 75 to 100 trillion cells in your brain and your body at quantum speeds. And here's how that works. It's not just one of these things where it kind of is a little energetic or a thing. Here's what happens is the thought you're thinking right now is activating a response inside your brain where it's creating protein. And these little proteins are developing that are branching off of the neurons inside your brain cells, and they make like little tree branches that come off of there. And the nature of your thought is actually going to affect the type of protein that develops and the way those branches are going to look. So if you have a thought that's powerful, exciting, that's vibrant, you know, that's love, and whatever it is that's a positive thing, you get these proteins that are developed, and you get these big, broad branches that come off of these neurons inside your brain, and it actually promotes healing around the rest of the tissue in your brain. She's gone on to show that if you have negative thoughts thoughts of fear, frustration, anxiety, bitterness, resentment, anything that's a negative thought, that it's a different protein altogether that's developed in your brain. And you get these little gnarly looking branches that come off of there, kind of like Snow White, the forest in Snow White, and just kind of scary looking gnarly branches that form off there. And it actually causes chemical changes to the surrounding tissue in the brain and affects the brain health. She goes on to say that mental illnesses aren't caused by chemical imbalance. Chemical imbalance resulting in mental illness starts with our thoughts. Depression. Harvard has actually now recognized that depression is caused by rumination. Rumination. Rumination is a word that kind of means chewing your cud. It's taking and bringing something back up and chewing on it again. Bringing it back up and chewing on it again. So the thoughts that we have, you don't think about a cow doing that in all its stomachs, but think about this. It's the thoughts that you're thinking right now that are changing you from the inside out, all of these cells in your body. So if you're thinking negative thoughts, thoughts of fear, thoughts of, oh gosh, what's going to happen, thoughts of anxiety, it's actually going to create these nasty looking little dendrites growing off your neurons. They're going to affect the chemistry in your brain that are going to be responsible for mental illness. So guess what? If you've got a family history of that, if you've been diagnosed of that, you can believe that. You can agree with that, and you can think according to that, and you can perpetuate that thing continue to happen. Or you can say, there's some people here that are pretty smart, and they've actually got some evidence of some pretty cool stuff happening. And it's not just, Caroline Leaf. This goes back to the very beginning. This is Paul of Tarsus, right? This is how many, couple thousand years ago, right? You're changed by the way that you think. And so as we can change our thoughts, we can change the chemistry in our brain. The thought right now is affecting every single cell in your body that quick. So how important are our thoughts? We should probably pay attention to them. So with each of these keys, I'm going to give you an action step today, or a couple action steps. With this one, I want you to start, if you're not already, to keep a daily wellness journal. Okay? And this is really, really simple. Each morning, first thing in the morning, write down something you're grateful for. It was probably, a year and a half ago, I bought gratitude journals for everybody in my family. And that was our mission, was to get up every morning and write down something we're grateful for. It takes like 20 seconds, a minute. And at first it was like, what am I thankful for? We'd think of something, and we didn't want to repeat what we did yesterday because we didn't want it just to be kind of mundane. But it got to the point where then after a week or two, it was like, this, and we just started recognizing we got more and more and more to be grateful for when we start focusing on what we got to be grateful for. Right? What we focus on increases. So start with that. As you're going through the day, think about what you're thinking about. Because guess what? When we're just kind of going through things, it's easy for us to get lost in this place and for our thoughts just to kind of go down negative pathways. Because that's the way we've been programmed. That's the way that we've become habitual. But if we start thinking about that, we can start changing our thoughts and we can rewrite what's going on. We actually change the neural pathways, create pathways that take us to a place of gratitude and goodness instead of despair and bitterness, right? And then what you're going to do is, as you go to bed at night, review your daily wins. A great way to set yourself up for a good night's sleep is just as you're laying in bed, just kind of thinking about things, instead of thinking about stress, thinking about what you got to do tomorrow, all the busyness is going on, just stop and kind of go, wow, today was good. I'm really grateful for that. That was cool when that happened. And just take a few minutes and just change your state. And that'll affect your sleep. That'll affect your waking the next day. That'll affect everything. Gratitude is a powerful, powerful tool. And then paying attention to what you think about. Okay? So the first key is to rethink. Change the way you're thinking. The next one is to get outside the box. This is nutrition made super, super simple. Okay? Because in the old days when we talked nutrition, we said there's food by God and there's food by man. That's still the truth, right? If you take a look at this here, we got real food, we got fake food. Real food, grown in nutrient-rich, healthy soil. Varies in quality, taste, and texture. Spoils. It spoils. Why does healthy food spoil? no preservatives, but it actually has nutrients in there. It has food in there that microorganisms will live off of, and they'll eat it if we don't. So you take a look at that Happy Meal over there that's been there since 2009. Guess what? It doesn't need the preservatives because there's not any food in there, so the microorganisms aren't interested. They're like, I don't want that. Why would anybody eat that, right? So it's going to spoil. It's not genetically altered. Mankind hasn't figured out how to make it better, right? We're not taking and blending fish with tomatoes to try to make some kind of a superfood. It just happens that way, that they're good. No added growth hormones, antibiotics, or drugs. No artificial chemicals or preservatives. Authentic flavor and color. I got a challenge for you, is to go and get like some carrots, organic carrots, and some just get conventional carrots, and taste them side by side. You're going to find that the conventional are all uniform, they're all the same size, they all look the same, and you're going to see a lot of variety in the organic, but you're going to actually have flavor in one and not so much in the other. Okay, it makes a big difference. The fake food, created in chemical soils, manufactured in factories, little variation taste, texture, they'll last forever, right? Them and the cockroaches will be around forever. Made with genetically altered ingredients, growth hormones, antibiotics, drugs, they'll put any kind of chemicals in there. Artificial and chemical preservatives, and then artificial flavors and colors to make them look good. So think about this. This is the box, comes in a box, right? It's in the center part of the supermarket, in the box aisles. This is the stuff that's around the outside that's going to be produce. It's going to be real stuff, real food. So let's take and make nutrition simple. Because the challenges we run into with nutrition is that we're confused, right? 1,000,001 different diets. Do we do keto? Do we do paleo? Do we do Mediterranean? Do we do, whoever's new latest fad diet? What's the diet that we're supposed to do? So we end up kind of going, I'm going to grab a box of cookies, and I'm just going to eat those, and we're going to do this because we don't know what to do with everything else. The bottom line is that it needs to be simple. If you want to be more alive than dead, eat food that's more alive than dead, right? Eat out of this column and not this column. That's the first step. That's super, super simple. That's the way to start making your body more healthy. You aren't what you eat. You are what you eat eats. So when it comes to animal products, if you like beef, right? You're not just beef. When you eat beef, it's not that. You're actually eating what that cow ate. So if you're eating a cow that was raised in a commercial factory where they're standing in their own waste all day long, not moving around, not getting sunshine, being fed God knows what, injected with who knows what, given antibiotics and growth hormones and everything else, guess what you're eating? You're not just eating beef. You're eating the rest of that. But if you're eating a cow that's out standing in the pasture, eating grass, enjoying some sunshine, just doing what it's supposed to be doing, and it's getting nutrients from its food that way, it's not being injected with all kinds of crazy other stuff, guess what you're eating? You're eating grass. You're eating the nutrients that come out of the soil. Right? Have you probably seen that t-shirt that says, I'm vegetarian because my cow eats grass and grass is a vegetable, so when I eat my hamburger, I'm eating vegetables. So if you want to become vegetarian, that's the best way to do it, right? You aren't what you eat, you are what you eat eats. Feed yourself and your family as if your life depends on it. One of the challenges we have when it comes to nutrition, with really any lifestyle issue, is that the choice that I make right now doesn't necessarily kill me right now or make me more alive right now. But the health, the state of our health, the state of us on a cellular level and where we are right now is an accumulation of the stuff that we've been doing over the past years and decades. And so eating Happy Meals like that one over there isn't going to kill you instantly. It's going to be a long, slow progression before you may even feel the effects of it. But guess what? It's affecting you. And so we need to eat like our life depends upon it because it does. And those little choices that we make each day make a big difference. Focus on adding more real food. So many times when we start putting stuff up here and we start talking about nutrition, it becomes this deprivation mindset. And it really isn't about focusing on what you can't do. It's increasing what you can do. And if you start putting more and more and more healthy food into your diet, guess what automatically happens to the other stuff? It goes away. You give it away. I remember when our kids were little, it was like, do we give this away or is that poisoning somebody else, right? So there's kind of this conscious thing, is like, how do we effectively dispose of these poisons? I'm not sure if there's a good way to do that. One other thing to think about when it comes to nutrition is creating a plan so that you have success in it. And so when we take a look at, do we do paleo, do we do keto, do we do Whole30, what does it look like? All of those are good if they're based on whole foods, real foods, foods that are outside of the box. But as a general rule, if you take a look at the different components of any kind of nutrient we take in, it's going to have carbohydrates, it's going to have proteins, and it's going to have fats. That's what makes up the fuels that keep our body alive and well. Unfortunately, here in this country, we've made carbs part of everything that we do because they're addictive and they go to the same opiate centers in your brain as cocaine and heroin. So we become a bunch of sugar junkies. The first way to actually start breaking out of that and to change the way your body functions is actually curb the carbs. So anything that is refined and processed, as far as the sugar goes, so white sugar, any kind of processed sugar, even flours, the grains and that kind of stuff. Processed stuff, we want to get rid of. Okay? This is one of the biggest challenges that we have, but if we start replacing it with the right foods, it's a whole lot easier. So we do that by fixing our fats. Fats are the most important nutrient that we consume because it's the most efficient fuel source that our bodies have. Our brain is about 80% fat by weight, and if we're getting good quality fats in, we get healthy brain. We've been conditioned for the past 40, 50 years that fats are bad. So especially saturated fats, right? So we've been on this low fat kick, we've been minimizing fats, we've been staying away from fats, avoiding them, they're bad. And we've seen increase in dementia, depression, Alzheimer's, all kinds of different chronic degenerative diseases, but also in obesity. All these things that fat should, if we cut it out, should fix. Heart disease has actually gone from 1 in 11 Americans to 1 in 2 Americans since we've been on a low fat kick. So fats are important, we need those, but we need the right kind of fats. And here's the good news. The right kind of fats are not vegetable oils. So you can pitch the corn oils, canola oils, safflower oils. You can pitch all those things because those are nasty anyway, right? Who wants to eat any of those things? Who likes margarine? Right? So here's what you get instead. Ghee, grass-fed butter, avocados, eggs, olive oil, coconut oil. You get some great, those are foods, right? Those are much, much more appealing. So we're fixing our fats by replacing crap that's horrible with stuff that's amazing and wonderful. Okay? Another quick thing on this too is going back to those 2 different cows we talked about, is that if we're eating the commercial cow that's been fed whatever, the fats in that cow are super, super inflammatory. And chronic inflammation is disease. Okay? Just because I said inflammation is important for healing, it's the very first step. We have to get past that step to go on to more healing. So we don't want chronic inflammation. If you take that cow that's eating in the field, their fatty acids are perfectly balanced for us to heal and repair. So as we're looking at fats, recognize that it's the quality of the fat that we're taking in that makes a big difference, as well as the resources. Perfect your proteins. This is actually making sure that the quality of the proteins that we're getting is good. These are going to be the things like from eggs and from different meat sources and from some vegetation, you're going to get some good proteins in there. But here's the key with this. If anybody has a concern about weight, maintaining their weight, getting to an ideal weight, this is the one that you really want to dial in and perfect. Because if you're eating too much of this, even if it's a good source, it's going to prevent weight loss. But if you can dial in the quantity of this, then it's going to get your body to automatically go to its ideal weight. And the nice thing is when you get to your ideal weight, that's where your body is most comfortable and wants to stay there. So as we start making these things, curbing the carbs, fixing the fats, and perfecting the proteins, our body composition is automatically going to go back to where it is, but now we're giving the body fuel that it needs so that it can function and heal the right way. Okay? Don't eat less, don't focus on eating less, but eat less often. This is a different shift too because we've been kind of conditioned to eat what? 3 meals at least, but in some circles they say 5, 6 times a day to spread things out. Yeah, get your 5 servings of grains and at least 2 of those should be whole grains, right? We've been taught all this stuff about what nutrition looks like. And part of the reason for this is because we want to maintain our blood sugar, right? We got to maintain our blood sugar by eating frequently. Well, guess what? If we get it to where our body is effective and efficiently burns fat for fuel, which is the most effective fuel, it's automatically going to balance the blood sugar without us having to eat all the time. All right, so don't necessarily eat less often. We'll talk about this as we get into another fun bonus section coming up here quick. Plan for success. Guess what? One of the challenges we run into when it comes to food is that we're eating off our cuff, right? We're just kind of going, oh, dang, it's time to eat. What am I going to do? And they say that you don't plan for failure, you just fail to plan. That's what happens. All right, everybody stand up real quick. I want everybody, if we can, let's just jog in place again. That one's super easy, all right? Everybody jog in place. We got about 30 seconds. You guys are good. High five everybody around you, and then go ahead and have a seat again. So I don't want to skip this part because the planning for success is critical. Again, one of the challenges, anybody here besides me really good at excuses? Yeah, I'm the king of excuses. I've got a perfect one for every situation that comes about. One of the excuses for eating right is just not knowing what to do, not being prepared. We get to this point where it's like we're hangry and we got to get something quick, so it's whatever is quickest and available, and that usually comes in what? A box. So if we're trying to get outside the box, that's just not going to work. So it really comes down to planning. How many people did the Whole30 deal with this? And we got the whole 365 going on over here. We got amazing changes with it. It took a little bit of planning though, didn't it? But when you planned it, and once you kind of got into it, it was easy. It just takes a little effort up front, and then you get the return on it. So I know that, when with having 3 kids and, having all the stuff that goes on with a typical American family, is that our Sundays, historically, were our planning days. We would figure out, okay, what do we want to eat for the week? We would look at what we needed to get to make that happen, and then that was our preparation day. So we would go shopping, get whatever veggies we needed, chop them all up. We would get whatever kind of proteins we wanted to do and start cooking some of that stuff up. So we could actually then have in our refrigerator containers of everything ready to go. And so to get a quick, easy, healthy meal, we could just grab a little of this, put that in there, and you got a healthy salad or a healthy omelet or a healthy this or that to make that happen. It took a little bit of planning, a little bit of prep time, but then everything was easy after that. And so instead of having this place where it's like, man, it's just too hard. Well, how hard is it to, watch your relatives waste away in a nursing home? It's not that hard. We just got to rethink, right? It's not that hard. I just got to prepare and make some plans to make this happen. And then slow down. This is really an important key. This is going to help with us to balance the way that our body digests and to keep our metabolism working. I talked about how we were in Portugal around in November going to the judo tournaments. We also were able to spend time with 3 different former exchange students from when I was a kid that live in France. And so we were in 3 different family homes in France. And they have a reputation in France of having what's called the French paradox, where they eat more fatty foods, they eat more food, and yet they've got less obesity and heart disease than we do. And here's the French paradox, is that in each one of these homes, different parts of France, different, really everything about the families was different. We had 2-hour meals. We would sit in the kitchen and prepare the meals together, and the whole family was in there. The kids were in there, involved in that. There was conversation, there was laughter, there was all kinds of activity going on, there was interaction, there was fellowship taking place during the prep time. And then we ate, and they'd bring out a little bit, and we would eat it, and then they'd bring out more, and we'd eat it, and we ate for like an hour and a half. And as we did, we actually ate less. Because part of what happens is you slow down, there's hormones in your gut that tell your brain when you're satisfied. And it takes about 20 minutes for those chemicals to make their way up to here. And if you think about how quick we normally eat, does anybody take 20 minutes to eat a meal? No. So that's why we're kind of going, oh, we got this, belly, baby in our belly kind of thing growing from what we just ate. Because we ate so much, and this didn't get a chance to hear that, hey, that's enough. Here's another key component to that is that when we chew, we actually start secreting enzymes to start the digestive process. It starts in your mouth as you're chewing. And then that makes it to whereas it's easier to swallow, digestion's already started in your gut, takes less stress in there, And it really decreases the whole stress process of digestion. How many people deal with digestive issues? Heartburn, reflux, indigestion, hard time assimilating, hard time going to the bathroom, whether it's diarrhea or constipation, different things like this that we deal with, chronic stuff. And a big part of that is because we just don't let the body do what it's supposed to do, which is digest. And so we really need to slow things down. And I would say the more that we can actually make eating a fellowship time, the more it's going to help us to express complete physical, mental, and social well-being, right? So when it comes down to this, it's really being intentional about nutrition. It's not saying which diet do I need, it's saying how do I want to best feed my body. And here's an important piece of it too, is that recognize that everything you eat is fuel. That's what nutrition is, right? Fuel, so your body can do what it does. Everything you eat, whether it's in the box or whether it's out, is fuel. But one source is going to be fuel to go this way, to a greater expression of health. One is going to be a fuel that causes toxicity and degeneration and inflammation and takes us towards a greater expression of disease. So there's nothing that goes into your mouth that doesn't have an effect. So again, we have to take and make better choices so that we can constantly be moving this direction. All right? And it's simple. Don't make it more complicated than it has to be. So here's your action steps for this. Replace those boxes with real food. Okay? If anybody needs to go home and go through their pantry, their cupboards, and throw out boxes, do it. That's a good place to start. That's one of those things where if you can take an action step that's bold like that, that's a commitment step. Those are the kind that make differences. So get rid of the boxes and use a weekly wellness plan. If any of you guys want a weekly wellness plan, make sure that before you leave, we've got your email address and we'll shoot this to you. This is really a super simple thing that you can prepare every week that basically says, okay, throughout the day, each day of the week, here's kind of my idea for what we can do for breakfast, what we can do for dinner, and then here's some healthy lunches that we can start creating, and this is a prep time. Cool thing about this too is you can also put in your spinal rehab exercises, and you got a little checkbox to get those done. If you want to say, I want to do cardio X number of times a week, or do strength exercising, or some other habit you want to create, you can write those in here, and then each day you've got little boxes to check for success. And you can do that. So if you want one of these, get us your email and we'll make sure you get that. All right? So does anybody remember key number 1? Rethink. Okay, key number 2? Get outside the box. Let's go to key number 3. Reverse the inertia. That's kind of a crazy thing to say, huh? Does anybody know what inertia is? What's that?
Staying still.
Staying still. An object at rest stays at rest unless acted upon by some kind of external force, right? So right now these phones over here are staying at rest. They're going to stay that way unless I put an external force on it and then it moved. It's not going to move on its own. That's the way we are, right? Same way. Inertia has two sides of it though. An object in motion tends to stay in motion. So I shoved my little phone and it moved. It's going to stay in motion unless it's acted on by an external force. The external force that stopped it was friction, right? So if I did that on a big slab of dry ice, it'd probably still be going. It would eventually slow down because there is friction that's involved in that. Say we got into space, we could throw something and just keep going. So an object in motion stays in motion, an object at rest stays at rest. That's what inertia is. So what do you think that we're designed for? We're designed to be moving. So bottom line is take a look at yourself and you got all of these different joints in your fingers, in your hands. You've got all of these bones in your body. You got all these muscles. We wouldn't have all those things if we weren't made for motion, right? We're made for movement. It's critical for us. Being sedentary is being called the new smoking. Here's the reason for that, is that when we're made for movement, movement actually nourishes that part of the body that's moving, right? So if we want to make our muscles healthy and strong, we exercise them. Every time you move a joint, you're getting nutrient exchange going through the joint structures to help them stay healthy. When those things aren't moving, they break down, they degenerate, they atrophy. So movement is a critical part of that. If we take a look at that even further, Roger Sperry, who won a Nobel Prize for brain research, he said that 90% of the stimulation or the exercise, the activity to your brain, and the nutrient exchange to your brain, or the food that it gets, is going to occur from movement of your spine. So think about that. In this day and age, our sedentary world, how much spinal motion do we get on a daily basis? Yeah, almost zero, right? Not a whole lot. So with that is, guess what's happening to our brain? It's not getting the nutrients it needs. It's not getting the exercise it needs. So if you don't get nutrients, you don't get exercise, what do? Yeah, you atrophy, you shut down, you die. So is there any surprise that we've got increased mental issues going on? Whether it's mental illnesses, depression, cognitive loss, dementia, these types of things going on. It's because we're not getting the movement that we're created to get. And the more sedentary we become, the bigger problem that we have. This is where it becomes an important thing. Consistent movement throughout the day is more important than a whole lot of movement at just one time in the day. So as they've taken a look at people and they've done research, they found that if you spend more than 6 hours a day sedentary, right, we typically think sitting at a desk. So what do we do instead? Now we got stand-up desks. So guess what I'm still doing? I'm still sedentary, right? So if you're doing that more than 6 hours a day, it doesn't matter if you're doing CrossFit, if you're an Ironman triathlete, if you're exercising 3 hours a day. If you're doing 6 hours of sedentary without breaking it up, you can't exercise to offset that. So what do we have to do? We have to create frequent breaks so that we take ourselves out of sedentary and get motion going on. We have to keep moving on a consistent basis. So they found that if you have a sedentary job and you get up every half hour, every hour, and you do some activity, even for a short period of time, it has a better healing effect on your body and your nerve system than being sedentary and being a world-class athlete and training for hours a day. So if you're training for any kind of event, you need to do that kind of exercise, but if you want to be alive, you've got to make sure you're taking frequent breaks. Does that make sense? Being consistent with your moving. So here's your action step. Set a timer to vibrate every 30 to 60 minutes and get up and do 10 of something. Or 30 seconds of something. You guys are kind of going, oh, no wonder he had his phone going off every 30 minutes so far. This is because it's not that hard to do. And it may take us kind of stopping, pausing what we're doing right now, but getting right back into it. And sometimes we'll talk ourselves out of it because we're really good at excuses and say, no, I'm in the middle of something important. I don't want to miss out on that. I'm in the groove. Guess what? I didn't miss a beat. Right? They've actually shown that if we can keep this thing exercised and get nutrients to it, we perform better. We have better concentration. We have better focus. We get more done. So don't listen to the lies that say, oh, I'm ingrained. I got to keep going. It's inconvenient. Stop. Take some breaks. Set your watch to vibrate. This is an important thing because this is going to get your brain, your nerve system excited and energized so that it can do the things that it is supposed to do for you. Which is what? Yeah, heal. It orchestrates that and what goes on. Here's another thing. This is kind of a bonus action step. Get outside and get moving. Does anybody not like living in Colorado? Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you kind of go, why would anybody want to just hang out inside? Get outside, get some fresh air, get some movement. That's what we're designed and created for. A great way to get out and work on your rethinking, right? Listen to the birds, look at all the different stuff that's going on, and watch the gratitude levels increase. And it's even better if we can do it with friends and family. Okay? So reversing the inertia, pretty simple, right? Just get moving. We're made to move. Let's go to the next one. Key number 4, unplug. This is probably one of the ones we have the hardest time with. Healing happens when we rest. As humans, how good are we at resting? Especially living in this day and age, this society. How good are we at just kind of resting? How good are we at unplugging our electrical devices? Yeah, unplug just doesn't fit in with what we do, right? We're drivers. We got to get things done. We got to make things happen. And unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. We don't function well where we're not unplugging and taking times to break. You guys realize that if you go back, even in the Bible, it talks about the 10 Commandments. You guys remember the 10 Commandments, some of those things? The 10 Commandments, I don't think it was because God said, I want to be a rule maker. And my perception is this, is that he said, what, here's some guidelines that if we want to just get along, have a better life, have a little bit less stress, and actually do better, here's some really practical guidelines to make that easier. Don't kill each other. Don't have adultery. Don't be stealing from people. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. That's a Jewish day, right? And the Jews on the Sabbath, they would rest. They would stop. And you kind of go, wait a minute. I get the killing people. I get the adultery part. I get some of those things. It's like, yeah, it makes sense. Rest made the top 10 for guidelines on how we can effectively navigate through life without burning things up. And yet we're pretty quick to just kind of dismiss the importance of rest. It's not just sleep, but let's take a look at sleep deprivation. See if this reminds you of anybody that you know. And it doesn't have to be the person looking back at you when you look in the mirror, but it certainly can be. You think about this, 60% of the American adult population has chronic disease. And that can look like irritability. It can look like weight gain. It can look like being impulsive. It can be this memory issue that goes on or brain fog. It can be emotional imbalance, reduced immune function. This happens because we're just not sleeping when we should. But guess what? If we have a hard time sleeping, that's a symptom of something else. And it's a symptom that we're just not programming ourselves to be able to rest. Yes? Yeah. I can relate. I struggled for years with sleep issues. And being the guy that has all these things, guess what? I got 1,000,000,006 ways to help you guys sleep better. But it's not those things, right? Those are all trying to treat a symptom. They're all trying to suppress the symptom of sleeplessness, restlessness. There's a bigger issue that goes on. And it comes back a big part to our mindset, right? Because when you are struggling with sleep, and if any of you guys have struggled with sleep, you know this, is that when you're laying in bed, going to bed on time so that you can get sleep, and you're staring up at the ceiling, not sleeping, there's a certain level of frustration that starts to happen. And that gets to where it starts to create all kinds of other chemical stresses in your body as well. And it can become this self-perpetuating problem that goes on. And so we have to kind of come back and say, well, what does rest look like? And we have to actually create a place of peace for that to happen. And as we start creating peace, and I'm going to show you what that looks like here, then sleep is going to be kind of a natural expression that starts to increase in that. Okay? So, unplugging. This has to do with what's called sympathetic dominance, that sleeplessness, restlessness. You guys familiar with the sympathetic and parasympathetic nerve system? Are you guys familiar at all with that? We'll break it down for you a little bit. But basically what it comes down to is that you've got this part of your nerve system that's called the autonomic nerve system. Think automatic is easier. Right now it's telling your heart when to beat, your lungs how to breathe. It's orchestrating all of your hormone activity. It's doing everything for you that you don't have to think about. It's a pretty cool thing. And it's got two different branches. You've got the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. We're really, really familiar with the parasympathetic because we call it the fight or flight. All right, so let's take a look at what it does. It dilates the pupils to enhance far vision. That's so that we can run away or we can chase stuff that we need to when we're in this state of fight or flight. Decreases saliva production. Decreases saliva production because guess what? Right now it's not thinking about digestion. We need to get away from the enemy or we need to chase something down. This is a fight or flight. Increases your heart rate. That's so we can get more blood to the muscle so we can run and we can fight. Constricts blood vessels to increase blood pressure. So as the heart's beating faster, we actually get this constriction that goes on, so there's more pressure going through the blood vessels. And it's great because it gets stuff to where it needs to go in a hurry, but it creates more friction in there, which causes more inflammation. So it's not a good thing for a long period of time. Dilates the bronchi, so you actually get more air into your lungs. Increases blood flow to the skeletal muscle so you can run. Reduces stomach and intestine motility. So basically, again, your digestive system just takes a break. It shuts it down. It releases glucose to increase blood sugar. So now you get this blood sugar effect where you got glucose that's going on, so your blood sugar goes through the ceiling. Stimulates adrenal glands so that you can get these stress hormones. This is the adrenaline so that you can race and you can rush, okay? And it relaxes your bladder. So if you're really, really scared, guess what happens? Yeah. But guess what? This is where most of us live. This is what day in, day out looks like. How many people right now do you know that kind of live in this state of fight or flight? Tension, agitation, digestive problems, everything is race, 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 race. And so what happens is that we actually get stuck into a neurological pattern. We create these neurological pathways, and it takes us down this direction, and we live in this state all the time. Even when we're not being chased by a bear, we're not hunting down something. So we take a look at the parasympathetic nervous system. This is your rest and digest nervous system. This is your sleep more effectively. This is digest effectively. This is the heal and repair part of your nervous system. Constricts pupils, increases saliva production, decreases heart rate, indirectly dilates the blood vessels. So guess what happens? The blood vessels dilate, your heart decreases because now there's no resistance. Things just flow. Doesn't take as much. And now we get oxygen to the cells. Everything is able to recover and do what it needs to do. Constricts bronchi because we don't need as much air. We can kind of control our breathing and reduce the breathing rate. Decreases blood flow to skeletal muscles. So now we can take blood to your organs, which is probably a good thing, right, if we want them to function properly. Increases stomach and intestinal motility. So now we actually get the digestive system working better. And it basically doesn't affect your blood sugar to a huge degree. The adrenals actually get to settle down and shut down, so it decreases the stress hormones, and it contracts the bladder. It also takes and it allows your reproductive system to function. Because guess what? Not only are you not interested in digestion when you're running from a bear, you don't really care about reproduction. So when we start looking at this is one of the big issues where we start seeing fertility issues, ED problems, because we're stuck in this fight or flight. Sleeplessness, we're stuck in this fight or flight. So here's what's interesting about this is that this is such a powerful part of healing, the parasympathetic nerve system. There's this nerve that comes right off the base of your brain that goes down to all your different body parts, all the different organs called your vagus nerve. You may have heard this. We talk about vagal tone in here. And in Scandinavia, they took a bunch of people that had rheumatoid arthritis. So this is the disease where your body's immune system is attacking itself and your body can't heal. It just continues to break down and you get all kinds of deformity, pain. It's really a horrible, horrible autoimmune disease. So they take a pacemaker, like the kind that they would put into to go to your heart, put it in here, and instead of that electrode going to your heart nerve, it goes to the vagus nerve. So now what they're doing is they're taking, because this is overloaded, this is overwhelmed, this is running on high gear, now they take and they stimulate this to activate this. And they see rheumatoid arthritis go into remission. V like Las Vegas. Viva Las Vegas. Okay, the vagus nerve. But it's V-A-G-U-S, not V-E-G-A-S. So here's the deal with that, is that we require both of these. They're both important. But one of the problems with taking this that's overloaded and now overloading this one is we're not fixing anything. We're just helping with some of the symptoms. Here's the way they're supposed to work. We get going in the day, we're active, we rest, parasympathetic kicks in, and we need this going on. Life is about balance. It's about bringing things to balance. We're stuck here. And we get stuck in this state, and here's what that does to us. It creates digestive issues, metabolic problems, cognitive and memory impairment, reproductive problems, hormone imbalance, compromised immune system, autoimmune diseases like we talked about, mood and emotional disorders, pain and inflammation, and chronic disease. This is us. We're stuck here. We're not sleeping. We're not healing. We're not repairing. So what do? We just take more melatonin or more Ambien or more to get this settled down? So we have to learn to reset the parasympathetic. And that comes by creating peace in our lives. And so one of the things that can happen, and that's going to be the action step that we talk about here, is to make that happen. So let's do this. Consistent bedtime and waking time. This is just a basic understanding that we operate on circadian rhythms. Our body and our brain knows when it's daylight and when it's dark. And if we can be consistent with those, we're going to actually sleep better. We tend to sleep better. Okay? Check your state. So you guys already are going to set your timers to go off every 30 minutes to 60 minutes, right? Right? I mean, you guys, that's action step from that previous one, reverse the inertia. So now when it goes off, before you just jump up and start doing your burpees or your jumping jacks or whatever, here's what I want you to do. I want you just to get up and check your state. How are you feeling? What's going on with you right now? Are you clenching? Do you have this furrowed brow going on? Are your shoulders up here like earrings? Are you tense? Are you breathing shallow? pay attention to your state. Are you in this place where you're ready to chase a bear or run away from a bear? Or are you breathing relaxed? Are your shoulders relaxed? Is your jaw relaxed? So just check your state. See where you are. And if you are this person, just shake it out. Let it go. Take a deep breath. Okay? And what you're going to find is if you do this consistently, you're going to go from here to in a week or 2 weeks or a month or 2 months or 6 months for some of you, kind of checking your state and kind of going, wow, I'm actually in a place of peace right now. Because here's the deal, is that when I started to recognize that I was stuck in this fight or flight state, and I would find myself like this even when I didn't need to be, and I started just releasing that tension and letting things go, that I did sleep better. That was a big, big part of it. Yeah?
So, my sister would just counter it with, well, since I'm up, I'll just be more productive and do a bunch of cleaning around the house.
Yeah. Because guess what? We're driven. You know, we forget, I don't even know what commandment number it is, but that take the time to rest and to create peace. And so when we're in that state, it's no wonder that we can't sleep. So we have to really kind of change this. This is a kind of a rethink thing that's going on. So when this goes off every 30 minutes, right, like you guys are going to be doing, then you can even do a thing like box breathing. Box breathing is a form of controlled breathing. So if you remember with parasympathetic, it talked about how it kind of constricts the bronchi, and it kind of reduces our breathing rate. It takes some of the stress off of our respiratory system. So is everybody familiar with box breathing? We're going to do some box breathing. So I want you to imagine a box, and a box is kind of a square thing, right? And it has a side that goes up, and it has a side that goes across, and it has a side that comes down, and it has a side that comes across again, and it makes this square. This is going to be the way that you're going to think about your breathing patterns, okay? Each one of these sides is a 4 count, all right? So you're going to breathe in for a 4 count. You're going to hold with inspiration for a 4 count. Breathe out for a 4 count. Hold at expiration for a 4 count. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, and then go across, hold it out for 4. And you're just going to work on this. I would encourage you to do that for 3 to 5 minutes. And what they've shown is that they can measurably see a change in your parasympathetic activity. Pretty profoundly. And it's interesting is that I've got monitors that I wear to measure my heart rate variability, which is the way that you can tell whether you're in sympathetic or parasympathetic state. And I noticed as I had my chest strap on and I was looking at my heart rate monitor thing is that when I was driving my truck around in traffic, that typically my heart rate variability would drop, which means my stress levels were going up. I can't figure out why, right? I mean, it was like, I don't know why that would happen. But I started checking my state, and I noticed that these are times when I was more tense. So I started box breathing when I was driving around. And guess what has become a habit? I breathe like that when I'm driving. So I'm actually settling down the stress in my body in this previously stressful situation. So again, as we check our state, we have some strategies now that we can be doing. We've already got our timer set to go off every 30 minutes. Now we can control our state. We can bring our parasympathetic system back into gear, and now we can get some inertia reversed and get some motion going on, okay? For those of you that are interested in monitoring your heart rate variability quite simply is probably the most accurate medical test for measuring anything that's out there. And what it does is it measures to see if you're in fight or flight or if you're in rest and repair. So it's basically looking at the balance between your sympathetic and your parasympathetic system. And all it does is it looks at your heart rate, and it's not measuring what your heart rate is, it's measuring the variability between beats. So the more variability there is between the rhythm of your heart, the more balanced you are, the more your parasympathetic is operating. The more we get locked into just a specific rhythm, the lower that is, the more we're stuck in sympathetic or fight or flight. So there's ways to check this. And yeah, I've got heart rate monitors. Actually, the ring that I'm wearing can do that. We've talked about this in one of our workshops about this little device here that can measure it, where you can just put this on your finger. It has to be something that measures it accurate enough that you could use it for an EKG. Right, so it's not just pulse rate, it's variability in between. And so these little tools with some free apps you can get on your phone can help you just kind of check your state and see where you are, which is a pretty cool thing. And for those of you that, that brought guests today, we've got a drawing that Jen is going to do right now to figure out who gets to take one of these things home. Uh-oh, before she does that, guess what we got to do? Everybody hop up. All right, jumping jacks, burpees, running in place, whatever you need to do, get some motion. I like that, hands up in the air like you just don't care. That's a good way to do it. If you guys were actually kind of checking your state right now, what would you notice?
I'm smiling.
Yeah, lots of smiling going on. Yeah, just kind of automatically. Probably increased clarity, increased focus. You're kind of ready to, instead of doing this a little bit more, getting back up and getting stuff. So those are some cool things. So Jen's going to draw a name, and we're going to send somebody home with one of these. Oh, yeah. So who we have? Connie. Yeah, fantastic. So with this, you'll see that there's, it'll take you to an app that you can download. And ideally, you want to measure it at the same time every day, kind of in the same setting. And it'll give you a readiness score. So it'll kind of tell you, today, based upon where your heart rate variability is, this needs to be a calm day where you can work on some relaxation. This is a day where you can go out and get it. You're in a good place right now, and we can act on that sympathetic thing, or you're somewhere in between. Pretty cool technology. It's fun to check, especially for geeky people like me. Does anybody want a bonus on action steps to help balance out your parasympathetic system? How about this? Cold thermogenesis. Does anybody know what this means? Cold showers, snow angels, anything fun like that. So here's what happens is that when you do like a cold shower, you got to control your breathing, right? It takes your breath away, so you have to kind of bring things back into breathing, and it really is powerful. It actually transforms the type of fat in your body so that instead of it being stored fat, it becomes more available for being used for energy. So there's lots of great benefits to cold thermogenesis. So if anybody wants to, start doing cold showers, that kind of stuff, it's a great little bonus for anybody who wants to do that. Yeah. All right. So we've talked about the first four: rethink, right? Get outside the box, reverse the inertia. Then we talked about unplug. Now it's the master key. And this is an important one because when we go back to this definition that Wikipedia gave us, it says it's probably more appropriate for us. Health may be defined as the ability to adapt and manage physical, mental, social challenges throughout life. And if you remember, we said that, that's kind of essentially the heal. How well are we healing? That's a good way for us to monitor what our health is. So with that said, if we take a look at the word heal and we kind of go, okay, that's what our body is created to do, what affects that? What affects the way we heal? Well, if we look at what orchestrates and controls all healing, is this. Right? It's your brain, it's your nerve system that right now is telling everything in your body how to work. It's telling every part of your body where it needs blood, where it needs white blood cells to heal, where it needs everything so it can do what it needs to do. This thing tells everything to do what it's supposed to do. If you look at all the other parts of your body, the one thing they have in common, they all plug into the spinal cord. So your spinal cord is essentially the power strip that takes the power from the brain to the rest of the body, so it can heal and do what it's supposed to do. And this isn't, this is one of those things where, oh, this is the chiropractic part of things. No, this is actually the key that is oftentimes missing. Gray's Anatomy says what I just said. Everything is orchestrated by the nerve system. That even down to the tiniest cell, it actually is orchestrating that. Dorland's medical text says that an intact nerve system leads to optimum functioning of the human body. So if we go back to what the definition of health was from the World Health Organization, right? Complete physical, mental, and social well-being. If we want that, if we want optimum functioning of the human body, we need to make sure that the nerve system is intact. It's critical. All body systems are mobilized without the nerve system. World Book Encyclopedia. Think about this. If I take this nerve that goes to your heart and I get some scissors and cut it, what happens? It's immobilized, right? All body, we start clipping any of these things and it's going to shut down. But here's where this becomes crazy is that we've got this nerve system that does everything. It's the only system in your body that has protective body armor. So we got our skull to protect our brain. We got our spine to protect our spinal cords. As long as it's intact and aligned, that nerve system can work without interference. But say that instead of cutting a nerve to your heart, I put pressure on the nerve or I squeeze it. What's going to happen to your heart? Well, yeah, exactly. Especially when you take a look, here's what they found here at the University of Colorado, that if you take any one of these nerves and you put as much weight on there as a dime would weigh, it's going to reduce the effectiveness of that nerve by up to 60%. So you think about how heavy a dime is, and if we put that on a nerve, it's like putting a foot on the garden hose and shutting off 60% of that flow. Doesn't matter what my diet is. Doesn't matter how positive my thinking is. Doesn't matter if I get up every 30 minutes and do 10 burpees. You know, what it comes down to is that we have to make sure that we're keeping this system intact so that we can function optimally. So I know I'm speaking to the choir because you guys are here, but this is why we do this. This is the basis of things. This is why we see where diet and exercise and other kinds of programs for people who haven't had success, they get to see the breakthroughs because of this missing piece. This isn't a new concept either. You know, if we take a look at this, back in 1921, a guy by the name of Henry Windsor was actually hired by the Medical Association to disprove what chiropractors were saying. Chiropractors were saying, hey, you know what, we adjust the spine not to make back pain go away, but because the spine affects the nerves that affect the body. And so this medical pathologist out of Harvard who did biopsies, or he did autopsies because he was a pathologist, he took, I think it was 131 cadavers, and he figured out what the cause of death was. And so if it was heart disease, he would trace the nerves from the heart back to the spine. If it was liver disease, he'd trace it back. And so here's what he found. With heart disease, all 20 cases had the upper 5 thoracic vertebra subluxated. That's going to be T1 to T5, right here. Guess where this goes to? Heart. Lung disease, all 26 cases of lung disease had subluxations, same area. Guess what we see? Stomach disease, all 9 cases in the mid-thoracic. Boom, we come in here, we look at this. 98.7%, I believe, was what he came out to towards where there was damage here, directly correlated to where they had organ dysfunction. So again, outside of lifestyle, he didn't even look at what other kind of lifestyle factors were involved. They weren't getting proper communication. This is why it's so important to make sure that you're doing what you need to be doing to keep that spine as healthy as possible so that you're not having the misalignments subluxating the nerves, okay? And I wanted to put this up here just to remind you what happens when you get adjusted. You know that little thing we hammer on you with is that neck was bent the wrong direction. If you remember, it's supposed to have an arc of life. And as we get in with the arthrostim and make adjustments, we are changing the alignment of the vertebra. As you're doing your home care, you're reinforcing the realignment of your vertebra. So with this girl here whose neck started off with a reverse curve in the lower part, and as she goes through an adjustment here and gets the curve to come back into her neck the way that it's supposed to be, like that, that's fantastic. Until she picks up her phone and starts texting her boyfriend, right? So the adjustment is critical, but it's what are we doing to reinforce it? And if we spend most of our life like this, we can't overcome that. We have to get up every 30 minutes. We have to get some movement. We have to be working on our posture exercises. What's interesting is that as I started pulling up stuff on what kind of benefits are there from getting adjusted on a regular basis, from consistent chiropractic stuff, I had a slide that was going, and I had a full column of stuff, and then I had like 2 full columns of stuff, and then I just kept seeing research on the benefits of getting adjusted on a regular basis. And here's what it came down to, is that it affects everything. So if your brain and your nerve system process every thought, every emotion, every organ function in your body, and we start removing interference so it can do what it's designed to do, guess what heals better? Everything. So basically, the side effect of getting adjusted regularly is better healing for everything, which is pretty cool. So, you know, as I kind of go back through my history and looking at, you know, trying to find all the right keys and everything else that goes on, is I've recognized that there's not any remedies. There's not any essential oils. There's not any supplements. There's not any that does healing. Only the power that made the body does the healing. Now, not that those things don't have some merit in affecting and giving the body some things that it might function better with, but they're not going to create the healing. Your body is made to heal. And that's where we have to take and get this ingrained in here so that we start appreciating and recognizing that. All right? Now, with that understood, who would like better healing? Yeah, who wouldn't like better healing? So, if you could have something that you could be doing that is easy and really, really cheap and incredibly effective at increasing your body's ability to heal, kind of turbocharging your healing, would you be interested? Yeah? That'd be kind of cool to you? Here's where I'm going to take, and anybody who wants to and accept a bigger challenge, this is going to be the challenge we're going to do. And it's going to be fasting. It's kind of expecting a corporate groan with the word fasting. You know, it's interesting is that fasting is a principle that's been practiced forever. And if you take a look at most religions, it's actually part of what they do on a regular basis. And it's easy to recognize the spiritual benefits that come with it. There's lots and lots of spiritual benefits that come with fasting. And I don't want to minimize those because I think, again, we're spiritual beings. Those are powerful. We need those. The more that we can be in aligned with our Creator and hearing His voice and understanding intimacy with that relationship, the better things are going to be. There's also mental benefits to it. Fasting can increase our clarity, our focus, our attention. But there's a ton of physical benefits that come with it. It can reset your metabolism. So if you have weight issues, it can help to bring things back into balance. It can reset your hormones. So if you're diabetic or pre-diabetic, and it can actually increase your body's sensitivity to insulin and other hormones so that the hormones come back into balance and function better. It actually increases your body's healing response. So there's two powerful things that happen when you're fasting. One of them is called autophagy. Has anybody ever heard of autophagy? Autophagy is, basically it's a medical word, but it's where on a cellular level, your body, when it's not getting nutrients in a caloric negative state, it's taking debris, waste products, toxins inside your cells and starts recycling those for energy. That's kind of cool, right? So it's kind of like burning the ash. Again, autophagy. Auto, A-U-T-O, P-H-A-G-Y. So what it's doing is actually kind of doing this deep, deep cleaning to your cells on a cellular level. And if you take a look at our health as a body is dependent upon the health of our cells. So if we can do this deep cleaning, clear out debris, toxins, waste that have accumulated over a lifetime in our cells, we just function better. Now there's another really, really cool effect that takes place as well. Are you guys familiar with stem cells? So you can spend thousands of dollars getting stem cell injections and doing all kinds of things with some value, some merit on some of those. The studies are kind of limited. The people that we've had coming in here that had them, kind of mixed reviews on them. But you guys realize that as you're sitting here, your body is creating its own stem cells? Yeah. And what happens is when we go into a fasted state, in our digestive system, which takes quite a bit of energy to digest, doesn't have to do that anymore, it can convert energy into stem cell production. So studies coming out of USC, MIT, some of these really elite, prestigious universities, they're showing that in as little as a 24-hour fasted state, stem cell production in your gut can increase by up to 100%. And what's interesting is they've shown that it's irregardless of age. So with each of us, as we age, our stem cell production slows down. It never stops until we stop. But at whatever age we're at, we've got a certain level of stem cell production going on. And so whether we're 5 years old or 95 years old, if we were to fast for 24 hours, our stem cell production would increase about 100% from where it currently is, which is kind of cool. So that means that it works for everybody. What they've shown is that about 3 days, if you do a 3-day non-caloric fast, you get a massive amount of autophagy. So you're getting all of this stuff where your body is going, I need energy. So it's starting to pull all this debris out and burn it. But stem cell production can then go up to close to 400%. So now you get 400% increase cells that can go anywhere in the body that they need to go to formulate healing. If you go 5 days, it continues on, and after 5 days, that's when we start having some issues that can affect your metabolism if fasting is not done properly. So, what we recommend for people who really want to get in and just turbocharge their body's healing is start considering the idea of 24-hour fast, a 3-day fast, up to a 5-day fast. And it's amazing the changes you get to see. So Melody and I did 2 5-day fasts last year. Bob did at least that many. And the changes are profound. They've shown with diabetics, right? Because you think, okay, a diabetic, somebody who's got blood sugar issues, there's no way they could do a fast like that. They've shown that there's an increased production of the beta cells in the pancreas that make insulin. So your body heals. Your body heals the disease that you've got when you do this. One of the gals that we went through the fast with the first time, there's about 2,000 people in the group that we did it with, which makes it a whole lot more fun when you're not doing it by yourself. She was an Olympic snowboarder, 2-time medalist. She medaled in Vancouver and then again in Sochi. She was basically not functioning as a human being when she started the fast. She'd had 34 concussions that she knew of, and countless other injuries. 3 days into the fast, she said that her body hurt like it had never hurt before because she was feeling all of these old injuries. And guess what was happening? Yeah, it was healing. Guess what healing feels like? Sometimes it can be pain because your body is increasing nerve activity to that area and it's carrying more stem cells to that area. And so at 5 days, she said that her brain popped open. And for the first time in years, she was able to start thinking clearly and her moods were changing. She did several more fasts throughout the year and she says she's a new person. And so what it comes down to is that your body automatically knows how to heal. This is getting it to go where it needs to go. And I can attest that the first fast I did at day 3, I had a neck injury when I played high school football, and my neck was killing me. We had a couple. He has severe knee arthritis. She has severe scoliosis with intense low back pain. And these are both chronic. And as they were 3 days into their fast, they were calling me, texting me, cussing me out, doing all kinds of stuff because their pain level had gone through the roof. And I talked them off the ledge. I reminded them what was going on. I told them that, you're free to do whatever you want to do. You're not going to get benefit if it's more than what you can do. And at day 5, when they started reintroducing food, they said that they had more relief than they experienced in years. So with that is that this is a powerful, powerful tool. Physically, mentally, spiritually. And I would encourage you to look at ways to start making fasting part of what you do. If you don't really have any health concerns, but maybe you just want to get your body more lean or to have it to where it metabolizes more effectively, you can do what's called intermittent fasting. And intermittent fasting is basically taking the distance between when you eat dinner and when you eat breakfast and starting to extend that. Right? So if you eat dinner now at 6 o'clock and you eat breakfast the next morning at 6 o'clock, you've got a 12-hour fast, right? It's basically been 12 hours since you've taken any food in. If you can push that back to 16 to 20 hours, increase that length by that much. So if you have dinner at 6, eat at 10 or 11 or 12, you've increased the length of that and you're going to increase the autophagy that goes on, you're going to help to balance your hormones, and you're going to force your body to start using fat for its primary energy, which is more efficient, and your body is going to start becoming more effective at fat burning. So you're going to get more lean. It's going to help with body composition, okay? If your primary concern is hormone imbalance, whether it's thyroid hormone, adrenal hormone, reproductive hormones, or insulin, so blood sugar issues, that kind of stuff, the ideal fast is going to be one where you would alternate days. So do a 24-hour fast one day, eat normal the next day, and do that to where you do 24-hour fast 2 or 3 times a week. And what that will do is increase the sensitivity of your cells to hear your hormones so your hormones work more efficiently, helps bring it back into balance. If you want to take and make 2019 your brightest year yet, I would encourage you to make regular fasting for an extended period of time, part of your routine. My goal for this year, my commitment to this year, is to do a 3 to 5 day fast every month. And one of the things that both MIT and USC said when they talked about the benefits of fasting is their whole focus right now is coming up with drugs that will mimic the effects of fasting, because fasting is hard. And I'm here to say that fasting isn't that hard. Guess what fasting requires? It requires us to say no to ourselves. Why would we do that? From a spiritual perspective, why would we say no to ourselves? It's so that we could actually see growth and increase take place. So the biggest challenge we have is just learning to say no to yourself. But from a pure hunger standpoint, the first day is a little bit rough. It's more rough up here than it is up here. But at day 3, your energy is almost where it would normally be. You're not going to be exercising as hard as you would be. You're not going to be doing anything super intense. But your energy, your ability to function and do the work you need to do is probably going to be fine. I've done 5 day fasts and have continued to do everything that I do here. So it's something that you can do. And what's interesting is that one of the comments I hear over and over again is, well, I didn't realize how much time was spent eating. And so when you think about the prep, the shopping, the cooking, the eating, the cleaning, it opens up a whole different thing so that during that fast, you just got time to create peace, to rest, to think, to listen, to do things that are really going to be enhancing to you. So here's my challenge to you guys that want to take it is that we're going to start corporate fasts on a regular basis for whoever wants to be involved. You can do your own thing. I found that it's a whole lot easier when I've got other people that are kind of going through the same thing at the same time. And we'll have Facebook pages you can get onto and make comments. You can ask questions. You can have access to us for whatever you need to do. Any questions, concerns? Do I continue with this? Do I need to break this? What are some challenges or solutions I can do? I would encourage you to get involved in that. We are kicking one off actually starting Monday. And again, it could be 24 hours if you're inclined to that. If you don't think you can do that, it could be, whatever you want to do. Just start some intermittent fasting. We'll even have guidelines for how to prepare yourself for a fast. So if you guys are interested in that, make sure we got your emails. Let us know that you're interested, and we'll get you in that loop and make it part of it. It'll be amazing what you'll notice. And then on the other side of it is guess what kind of things come out of learning to say no to yourself? Discipline, confidence. Yeah, all kinds of good stuff that goes on. There's that sense of accomplishment, right? We want that easy button. We want the magic pill. But there's no satisfaction that comes with that. When we learn to say no, or we learn to actually take some proactivity and responsibility for our health and work out the solutions we need to, there's great reward. We feel good about ourselves. We continue to grow. So that's my encouragement to you. With that said, I think that's all I got to cover. Let's go back and review the 5 keys and your homework assignment, okay? First key is rethink. What's your homework? Gratitude journal. Reviewing that, writing in the morning, reviewing it in the evening, and thinking about what you think about. Okay, key number 2 is get outside the box, which is eat real food, get rid of the boxes, right? Go in and clean out your pantry. Get that stuff going on. Eat food that's more alive than dead. Key number 3, reverse inertia. Has everybody already got their phone programmed to vibrate every 30 minutes? Okay, do that, and when it does, what are you going to do? Move. Very good. Do something. Get active. Also, another bonus for this is that guess what? When you guys are sitting on your little posture cushions and you're doing your spinal warm-ups, guess what you're doing? You're increasing nutrient exchange to the brain. You're stimulating the brain. This is great activity. So not only are you helping your spine to stay healthy, you're actually helping with the integrity and health of your brain. Okay, so number 4, unplug. So what's your homework? What's your strategy for this? Box breathing. Get that going. It's amazing what that will do. Okay, key number 5. This is going to be a key one. And for those of you that are engaged in it, it's make sure that you're keeping your spine adjusted. Get adjusted on a regular basis. Be consistent with that. Do your spinal home care stuff. If you have friends that you're concerned about their health, make sure they're getting their nerve system checked. It's an important part. It's overlooked. You guys have all heard me share the story about the local doctor in town that ate well, exercised, meditated regularly, took great care of himself, skied Mount Everest, climbed most of the Himalayan peaks. This guy was a rock star. He was a stud. Brilliant man. And he comes into our office. One of our patients found out he had pancreatic cancer. And she sent him in here and said, you got to get your nerve system checked. We took x-rays and we found 30 plus years of damage to this part of his spine, and the rest of his spine looked perfectly healthy. And we showed him on the nerve chart where that nerve goes to the pancreas. We started adjusting him, and 3 months later he goes to his oncologist. They can't find cancer anywhere in his body. He's cancer-free because his body's made to heal. But guess what? Here's where the story goes south. He thought health was feeling good. He thought health was no disease. And so he stopped coming in because he had his health. And we get a call from him 6 months later, and guess what had come back into his body? Cancer. Because 30 years of damage can't be undone in 3 months. And within a few weeks, he was dead. And so, we don't want any more miracle stories that go south. We want people to make 2019 their brightest year, and each year after that even brighter. So, I love and appreciate you guys for being here. You got your homework. If you want to join us in this fasting challenge, it'll be awesome. We can all support each other through that. It'll be great. And we get to share miracle stories that take place as we are able to accomplish things. So, with that said, God bless you guys. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.